Yo, what it do? This is your brother Jay International tapping back in once again. And make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Share the videos, like, comment, do all that. So getting right to the point on today's podcast, blog, I want to talk about how the civil rights movement, or the ultimate movement of the civil rights, was a failure. And the reason what sparked this is because I was recently a part of another content creator's podcast, or his live stream, and it was talking about civil rights and was it a failure or not. In that conversation, there was a lot of baby boomers that were in attendance, and they were giving their opinion. And I've already discussed how I felt about black baby boomers in a previous video. You can check that out. But yeah, they were in there giving their opinion, and basically they were giving the same old tired statements of, well, we did this and we did this and we worked hard, and we work harder than you millennials, and we never complained, and we didn't have all this violence, and millennials are entitled and lazy, and yeah. But this the thing, man, you know what I'm saying? So I was able to be a part of it, and they didn't want that work. You know what I'm saying? I was gonna give them that work, but they didn't want that work. You know what I'm saying? Like what our brother said, what's his name? Y'all know what I'm talking about. They didn't want that work, and I was gonna give them that work. And this is a millennial that, has read a lot, has researched a lot, done all, traveled the world, listened to all our greatest scholars that we've had. I'm constantly reading, constantly trying to learn. So this is a millennial that's, that's not a lightweight. I'm a heavyweight with it. But yeah, so basically they were just, talking about, how we, basically saying that, they did the best they can do. But if they did the best they can do, then we millennials wouldn't be in the situation that we in right now, because they basically did what was best for them. They weren't thinking about the future generations, the generations that were come. They weren't thinking about, setting up something for them. They was thinking, okay, I got my good job, or, I was able to get my foot in the door and get my good job, and I was able to stay with a company for 40 or 50 years and retire with, with a pension. And that's all they were thinking about. You know what I'm saying? And they weren't thinking about, well, damn, I can't pass a job on to my children or grandchildren. They wasn't thinking in advance like that. And their whole idea was, okay, go to school so you can get a good job. But they didn't have a plan. They didn't tell us, okay, this is what you should go to school for. So they just kind of felt that, just getting an education was going to enable you to, to get a good job, get a good career. They wasn't looking at the future. They wasn't paying attention to all the signals and the signs in the economy. They were just giving advice they felt that was going to work, but not really paying attention to where the economy is heading. So I'm going to give my opinion on why I feel the civil rights movement was a failure. And this is based on certain sources that I pulled from. I pulled from Britannica.com. I pulled from the History Channel, or History website as well. I also pulled from works from Malcolm X, and basically when he was saying that the civil rights issue should be a human's right issue. So here we go. According to the Britannica.com, what is civil rights? Civil rights guarantees of equal opportunity and equal protection under the law, regardless of race, religion, or other personal characteristics. The civil rights movement was a struggle for social justice that took place mainly during the 1950s and the 1960s for Black Americans to gain equal rights under the law in the United States. In most southern states, African Americans continue to be systematically disenfranchised and excluded from public life, leading them to become perpetual second-class citizens. So, yes, during those times, we were denied certain rights. We were denied access to certain things. So to fight for us to have equal rights, it was a good thing. But where I feel that we went wrong, and I'm going to read on some more notes that I have, is that we shouldn't have fought for integration. For us to have certain rights that the whites have and had, we should have fought for that, but we shouldn't have went so hard just to, be amongst them. So to marginalize Black people, keep them separate from white people, and erase the progress they've made during Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws were established in the South beginning in the late 19th century. Black people couldn't use the same public facilities as white people, live in many of the same towns, or go to the same schools. Interracial marriage was illegal, and most Black people couldn't vote because they were unable to pass voter literacy tests. Now, I'm going to attack some of this right here. This is where I don't think we should have been fighting to be able to eat in the same restaurants as them, to be able to drink from the same water fountains from them, to be able to use the same toilet as them. I think we shouldn't have done that. That was a waste of time, because as Dr. Clark Anderson talks in his 3 of his books, Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, and his most recent one, History Lesson, I believe that's the name of it. But more specifically in Powernomics, he talks about during Jim Crow, when we were forced into segregation, we had our own things like Black Wall Street. We had our own bus lines, we had our own taxi lines, we had our own theaters, we had our own schools, we had our own restaurants, we had, we was independent. Like we had our own everything. We had our own things, right? And when we were fighting for civil rights and fighting to have access to white people's things, we just, once we got access to it, we just gave up all that stuff that we had. And that was a big mistake. And that's one of the ways that we went wrong in the civil rights, is that we should not have been fighting so we can be with them. Because whenever we try to be with them, guess what happens? White flight. They move. You know what I'm saying? So, that was a grave mistake, because we gave up our independence. We gave up all the things that we had, the things that we established, because we thought white ice was better or colder. And that was an error right there. So going on, in 1896, when the U.S. Supreme Court declared in Plessy v. Ferguson that facilities for Black and white people could be separate but equal. I don't see anything wrong with that. as I said, we had our own thing. You know what I'm saying? We had Black Wall Street. We had a whole Allensworth that I just learned about through Brother Tariq Nasheed, which is a town in Southern California. We had multiple towns like that, and if we could have just kept those and kept those, built up and doing good, cool. We didn't need to be amongst them. We did not need to be amongst them, because look what we have now. We don't have none of that. Dr. Claude Anderson, he tried to do that again in Detroit, and they denied him. He was trying to set something up like that, like similar to Black Wall Street in Detroit. Black folks didn't want that. So now here we are in 2022. We got the millennials, the Gen Zs. We don't have anything. We don't have any businesses that we can, major black establishments that we can go work for. Yeah, we got Tyler Perry Studio, but that's just one, there's over 40 million of us, right? We could have had something similar if we would have, if we wasn't so eager to integrate with white people and sit on their toilets and eat their pies and their cheesecakes. We could have had something similar to what the Jews have, what the Koreans have, Chinatowns, what the Italians had. Like, we could have had that. And they could have passed that on to us. So that way, when we get out of college, we wouldn't have to go because we can't find a job in white corporate America. So we got to go work at a Starbucks. So with a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, so we can keep making payments on our student loans. Right? We wouldn't be in that predicament because we would have businesses and establishments to go into. Bob Johnson, he sold BET, right? But we had more Bob Johnsons. We might have had something. Reginald Lewis, he died, but he was creating that, right? If we would have more of those things. Hey man, guess what? We could have went to our historical black colleges. We could have went to the white university, and we would have had black businesses to go in and to work for, or create more, right? But we wanted to be with them, right? And that was a grave mistake that we paying for it till this day, and we're going to continue to pay for it. In 1954, the civil rights movement gained momentum when the United States Supreme Court made segregation illegal in public schools in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education, right? So we wanted to go to their schools. We fought for that, and now look what public schools are now. It's a pipeline to prison. It's a pipeline to prison, right? In the public schools, we receive inferior education. We have our classes dominated by white, millennial teachers, right? And they don't care about us. They just want to do their job. They don't understand us. These white female millennial teachers that come from suburbs, they don't understand us. Black males can't relate to them. But this is what we wanted. Instead of having black schools like what the nations had, like what the Nation of Islam had back in the 1960s under the leadership of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where we were learning how to be self-sufficient, and we were learning how to do for self. We gave that up to go to these inferior public schools now that we have, because we wanted to be with white people. And what white people do, they pull their children out of those schools and they set up their own private schools and their own charter schools. So what we was chasing them for, they ran away again. So what was the point of that? What did we gain from doing that? Nothing. So basically the civil rights movement was based mainly in the South, started with the colleges and the churches, and basically it included things like sit-ins, as well as voter education and voter voting drives. Most of these efforts were local in scope, but the impact was felt on a national level, a model of the civil rights organization that has since spread all over the globe. Yeah, we still have these boycotts, we still have these sit-ins, but what are they really doing, man? You know what I'm saying? Nothing's gonna change. Everything that when you see that, when you want something to really change, a sit-in and a boycott ain't gonna do nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna take a revolution, it's gonna take force, it's gonna take real, you're gonna have to fight fire with fire, literally and figuratively, but that's what it takes. So, arguably one of the most famous events of the civil rights movement took place on August 28, 1963, the March on Washington. It was organized and attended by civil rights leaders such as Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, and the late great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So they had the March on Washington, and it was basically for us to, that's where he gave his infamous speech, I Have a Dream. But it was all about integration. It was all about us being integrated. And this is the thing. Even though we fought for integration, we would never, and still to this day, are not really integrated. We don't live in a melting pot. We don't live in that. We have a big pot with these different components that are all in it. The big pot is America, and different components are all in it, but we are all separated. We're all separated. We're all in our own part of the pot. There is no melting going on. White people, they're in their area. Asian people in their area. Latino people in their area. Black people in their area, and the others in their area. There is no melting going on. So what they were fighting for didn't happen, and still is not happening today. We're becoming more divided. We've become more divided. Even immigrants, when they come over here, what the first they want to do, they want to separate themselves. They want to go into their own communities and deal with their own people. So how can we call America a melting pot? It's not a melting pot, and has never been a melting pot. So, and during the same time of the civil rights movement, Malcolm X was saying that we don't need to focus on civil rights, we need to focus on human rights. Because according to what he said, is Malcolm X said civil rights is supposed to mean that we are citizens. But we have never been citizens. We have never been treated like citizens. So by him turning it away from civil rights into human rights, it made more sense because we should be treated like humans. And he was able to take it to the UN and have not only just it being confined to the America, but being put on the table for the whole world to see through the UN. And towards the end of Dr. King's life, he even came to the realization that integration was the wrong move for him to be pushing. So it was said that by Harry Belafonte, even Dr. King came to the realization that integration was a wrong struggle. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. realized that the struggle for integration would ultimately become a struggle for economic rights. Harry Belafonte recalls Dr. King saying to him, "We have fought hard and long for integration, as I believe we should have, and I know that we will win, but I have come to believe we are integrating into a burning house." And my view on this is that he came to the understanding that integration with white folks was not going to do anything to benefit black folks, because the wealth would still be concentrated in their hands, and they would do whatever is necessary to keep it there and keep us blocked out from getting access to that wealth. And that's what they have done, and that's what they continue to do. I also believe his view on integration changed when he started to meet up with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because that's what he did. He did start to meet up he did start to have talks with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we all know what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was about. He was about us being separate from them, for us to have our own. So it's no surprise that towards the end of his life, his view changed, and he realized that it was an economic thing. It was not just us being able to sit in their restaurants and sit on their toilets and drink from their water fountains, but it was an economic thing, right? And that's what it still is to this day. That's why we need reparations, because we are never, the gap, the racial gap, the wealth gap is never going to go anywhere because they're too far ahead in the race. As I said in my last video, this is a race, and they have already completed 4 laps. They have already done 4 or 5 laps around the track. They're Usain Bolt. We a 300-pound fat guy trying to catch up to Usain Bolt. No matter how hard we try, Usain Bolt is still going to stay ahead, and that's the white race. They're still going to stay ahead because they already have such a large lead in the race. They have 4 or 5 laps ahead of us, and they're continually running, and we're trying to continually catch up. And the only thing that's going to catch up is if we're put through cash or land grants right where they at in the race. That's the only way. That's reparations. Civil rights also failed because it benefited immigrants more than non-immigrant foundational Black Americans who fought in every war of this country and have never ever been an enemy to this country. Civil rights now benefits other groups more than it benefits us, who it was intended for. It was intended for the foundational Black American who built this country, who on the back of our ancestors, this country was built. And now civil rights are benefiting white women, the LGBTQ community, and all these other immigrants who come in here and have vitriol for Black Americans, foundational Black Americans who built this country. They dislike us. They separate themselves from us. They don't support us. And when we try to strike out and do something for ourselves, they try to sabotage it. But this is who civil rights till this day, all the rights that we fought for, that our ancestors fought for, dogs being stuck on them, hung from trees, sprayed with water hoses, beat by the police officer, race soldiers, billy clubs, all those sacrifices that all those marches and boycotts and bus sit-ins that we fought for us to have those rights. Now all these hating immigrants who come from these countries where they keep their own Black population on the bottom. Now they come over here and they benefit from it. And not only are they non-immigrants, but their countries, majority of the time, have been an enemy of the United States. But see, this is the main reason I feel, and I can see, that civil rights has ultimately failed us, right? And they say, okay, well, we had civil rights, you get these baby boomers, these Black baby boomers, and some Gen Xers say, well, civil rights didn't fail us because look, we have Barack Obama, we have Oprah Winfrey, we have all these, we have the new Supreme Court Justice, we have Stacey Abrams, we have whatever the Supreme Court Justice's name is. We have all these, all these powerful Black people and these powerful Black politicians. And this is my answer to that. Taking Black faces and putting them in high places translates to nothing for the masses of FBA and is often just symbolic in nature. Let me say that again. Taking black faces and putting them in high places translates to nothing for the masses of FBA and is often just symbolic in nature. Why? Because these black faces in high places don't do nothing for the masses of black people. Just look what did Obama do for black people? Not a goddamn thing. But he did something for all other groups. But for the group, the Foundation of Black Americans, who supported him the most, who went to bat for him, he did nothing for them. Not an iota. In the words of Dr. Claude Anderson. So with that being said, that is my reason, that is my theory why I feel the civil rights movement ultimately failed. So with that being said, like, share, and subscribe. This is your brother Jay International tapping back in once again. Peace.